Hello YouTube, Mikey Cal here, and this is video number 17 part 2 in my series on utilizing Blender as a video editor. Now in video 17 part 1, I showed you how to set up your render properties window so that you can output an H.264 video, and I showed you how to change the bitrate settings and render out a short frame range so that you can test to see just how small you can get the video file to be while maintaining a good quality video and audio output. Now in today's video I want to talk about how to render out a lossless video from Blender. Now some of you may be wondering why I would want to do that. Well, unfortunately Blender doesn't really give us a lot of control of how the render is happening. It kind of uses a bunch of default H.264 settings. And we want to have more control over the outputs, and the only way to do that is to use a program that lets us actually change some of the settings. So what we need to do today is just output our video project as a lossless format, and then we can go over to a program like HandBrake, and I can show you guys how you can really shrink down the videos while maintaining a high video and audio quality. So let's get started by going to the render properties window. And for those of you that don't know how we got all the settings that you see here, please watch video 17 part 1 where I go section by section and I show you how to set everything up so that it looks like what we have here. And today we're going to mainly be talking about the encoding section because that's the place where we need to make the changes in order to render as a lossless output. Now first thing, the format container that we used in the previous video of MPEG-4 is not the best option for the lossless codecs. So let's switch to AVI, and there's no real difference in what we're getting in our final render. It's just that there's a compatibility issue. It needs to be AVI. So the first option that we're going to utilize to do a lossless render is the H.264 lossless option. We can simply just check mark the lossless output option here, and it will ignore any of the bitrate settings, and it will render out a H.264 lossless video. Now there are two other options that we can utilize, and they are HuffYUV and FFmpeg video codec number 1. Now I'm just going to tell you guys that H.264 lossless is the option that I always use. Now the thing about HuffYUV is that it's super fast at rendering. In fact, it's faster than H.264 and it's faster than FFmpeg video codec number 1. But it makes files that are gigantic, gigabytes in size. I mean, it's ridiculous how big these files can get. So if you have a long video, man, you better have like a terabyte drive in order to actually fit the entire video render. Now the thing is that it is the fastest of the three at rendering. FFmpeg is the slowest, and FFmpeg is going to give you much smaller file sizes in the render, but I think the last time I did a render with FFmpeg video codec 1, it was like a second per frame. It was ridiculously slow. So that's just not going to work for me. So it just turns out that the option of H.264 lossless, it kind of gives us something that's almost as fast at rendering as HuffYUV and relatively small, well, by comparison to HuffYUV. So we're going to use H.264 with the lossless option selected, and remember it ignores the bitrate setting whenever we're doing any of these lossless options. The next thing we want to do is we want to also have lossless audio. So what you're going to do is go down to the audio codec section, and we're going to select PCM, and it will ignore the bitrate setting. Now the one other thing that you guys have to remember that I pointed out in the previous video is the audio sample rates, and that setting by default is going to be 44.1 kilohertz. But we can change it to something higher by going over to the Scene tab up here and going to the audio section, and in there you can type in whatever sample rate you want to use, and it will render out with that sample rate. Now I'm going to tell you guys this ahead of time. The program that we're going to be using, HandBrake, for doing the final encode, it seems to only support up to 48 kilohertz in audio sample rate. So if you have a higher sample rates, I mean, you can render it out as high as you want, but when we bring it into HandBrake, it's going to at most be 48 kilohertz. But this is how we can actually just get everything optimally out of Blender. So let's go back to our render tab up here, and you can simply just set your frame range and render this out. And we're going to continue. I'm going to bring up HandBrake in 1 second. I'm going to show you how we can start playing around with some of the encoding settings in there. Okay, I'm going to quickly go through HandBrake and show you how to set up each of the tabs in Windows, in Mac, and in Linux. I'm going to do them in a row, and then I'm going to come back after I've shown you all the settings, and I'm going to show you how we can test those settings. So first thing we want to do is, I'm in Windows 10 right now. We're going to go up to the source button up here, and I'm going to select File, and I'm going to select the video that I want to convert to a, I want to play around with the encoding. I'm going to go to the picture settings, and I'm going to turn anamorphic off to none. And it should have brought in the resolution, so we can just keep those settings as they are. Turn the cropping to custom. We don't want to do any cropping. Let's go over to our filters tab and make sure that everything is turned off as it should be by default. And let's go up here next to our container, and it says Web Optimized. Check mark that, and we can set a file name for what this is going to be output as by hitting the Browse button and then typing in, a name and hit Save. And it's going to save this file when we render it to that location with that name. Let's go to the Video tab, and we're going to set the video codec to H.264, use same as source frame rates, and select constant frame rate. This is very important. Some variable frame rate videos will not play on some players, and constant frame rate video is better for editing too. So we want to set our preset to fast, and make sure that you have X264 tune set to none. And let's set our H.264 profile to high with a level of 4.0. And let's set our constant quality to 23. And let's go to our next tab. And you'll notice that it has the audio set here. And the best audio that we can use for Windows and for Linux is going to actually be AAC FDK. And you can set the bitrate to whatever you like. As long as it's, I say, 160 or higher, you're probably pretty good. I'm going to put mine a little bit higher. I'll put mine to 320. And I'll set this to stereo, because my audio is stereo. And hit the Show button to see any other options. We can set the sample rate to be audio. It will actually just look at what the sample rate of the original audio was, or we can set it to a specific one. I'm going to set mine to 48. And you don't need to do anything with the subtitles or chapters. And that's how you do it with Windows. Okay, now I'm going to show you how to set up HandBrake on the Mac. So let's go up to the Source button, and we're going to import our video. And we can give a name to the final encoded video by clicking on the Browse button in the Destination section and just giving it a name that we like. I'll call it test.mp4, and it's going to be saved to the desktop. Click Save, and you can see the directory here. Make sure that the format is set to MP4 file, and checkmark Web Optimized. Now we're going to go up to the picture settings by clicking on this button up here. And it should have brought the resolution in, so we should have, in this case, 1280 by 720, but whatever the video resolution was of your original video, it should show up in there. And make sure it has the Keep Aspect Ratio button checkmarked. Go to the anamorphic section and switch that to none. And in cropping, set it to custom, and make sure that all these are set to 0. Now click on the Filters option, and we should use all the default settings, which is everything is off. And you can close this window now. Now go to the Video tab and make sure that the video codec is set to H.264, that the frame rate is set to same as source, and that we use a constant frame rate. Next, go to the preset and set it to fast. Make sure that tune is set to none. Make sure that fast decode is unchecked, and set the profile to high and the level to 4.0. Now go over to the quality setting and make sure that you select constant quality and set this to a setting of 23. Okay, now we can go over to our audio tab, and we want to make sure that we use AAC core audio and that we mix it down to stereo in this case. You can leave the sample rate to auto. It will just detect whatever the auto sample rate was, or you can set it to a specific one if you like. And make sure that you use a bitrate of at least 160, but I actually like to use 320, just what I do. And go to your Configure Defaults button right here, and just make sure that everything is the same. So we can use AAC core audio, and we can use stereo here, sample rates, auto, or whatever you want to set it to, and whatever you set it to as bitrate, 320 here. And hit done. You can leave all the rest of the settings the same. And you don't need to do anything for subtitles, and you don't need to do anything for chapters. That should do it. Okay, now we're going to set up HandBrake for Linux. So the first thing you need to do is go to HandBrake's File menu and select Preferences. And go to this option right here, Use iPod iTunes Friendly .m4v file extension for MP4, and deselect that and hit OK. And that will actually save our file as an MP4. Now go to the source button in the upper left, click on that, and import the video that we want to re-encode. And you can give the final encoded video a new name. We'll call it test.mp4, and select the folder you want to save it to. And checkmark Web Optimized. Next, go over to the Picture tab and uncheck Auto Crop and make sure that all these settings are set to 0 because we don't want to crop it at all. And go to the Storage Geometry, and it should have auto-detected your resolution. So for this movie, it was 1280 by 720. Just leave it as is. Go to the Anamorphic option and set that to off. And go to the Display Geometry and make sure that it has Keep Aspect Ratio selected. In the Filters section over here, make sure that all these are set to the default of off. So it should be exactly as you see here. Next, go to the Video tab and make sure the video encoder is H.264. The frame rate is same as source. Make sure that you set this to a constant frame rate because variable frame rate video does not play back in all video players, and it's not editable. So you can't bring it into Blender to edit it later. So make sure it's set to constant frame rate. In the presets, make sure you set the preset to fast and the tune setting to none, profile to high with a level of 4.0. Make sure that constant quality is selected and set the constant quality RF setting to 23. And that should be all you need for this video tab. Go over to the audio defaults, and we're going to set the encoder to AAC FDK, which is the best option. And the bitrate should be a minimum of 160, but I like to use 320. And I mix down to stereo. You can use a sample rate that is auto-detected, same as source, or you can just set it to whatever sample rate you like for the audio. Next, we're going to go over to the audio list. And I noticed that this doesn't change. It's not connected directly to the audio defaults. So what you have to do is delete it and then add it again, and you'll notice that now it will have all the settings that you had in the audio defaults. So we can just hit OK, and now it's showing the exact same settings in our defaults for the audio as the one that is listed with the video. So it's FDK AAC stereo 48 kilohertz, which is identical to what we have here. So now you don't have to do anything in the subtitles tab. You don't have to do anything in the subtitle list or the chapters or the tags. That should be all you need. Let's move on to explaining some of these options. Now, you guys don't want to have to set all these settings every single time that you import a new source file to be re-encoded. So we can just save a preset that will automatically set all the settings for us every time we bring a new video in. So the way you do that is you go over to the presets, and on Windows they're on the right side of the HandBrake program, and on Linux they're at the top right. On the Mac you have a button that will pop out a presets window, and at the bottom of the presets you can click on this Add button, and we can type in YouTube and hit add. And now whenever we import a new source video to be encoded, we can just click on the YouTube preset and it will automatically set everything to have these exact settings. So now let me talk about how we can change some things to improve the quality and decrease the file size, because Blender didn't really give us a lot of access to options. So over here in the quality section, we actually have two different ways of doing an encode. We can do a constant quality setting, and we can do an average bitrate, which is the way that we did it in Blender. Now, if you're doing average bitrate, there is an extra option. You can type in a bitrate just like you could in Blender, but we can now do two-pass encoding. And what that means is that the encoder goes over the video one time and analyzes it. And then when it goes over it the second time, it doesn't have to guess so much. So we can actually do a much more optimal encode. So the best way to get the most optimal encode is to do a two-pass encode. And you can do it by selecting average bitrate, typing a bitrate in, and selecting two-pass. But this is going to take a long time because you have to go over the video twice. Now, one of the cool features of X264 encoder, which is what we're using to do our H264 encode, is that it has a constant quality setting. So we don't have to guess a bitrate anymore. We can set it between 0, which is a lossless quality setting, and 51. And it will automatically try to, guess a good way to encode it based on what setting you put it at, what constant quality setting. It turns out that 23 to 20 are actually the best settings for HD, generally speaking. But if you have a video that is just a talking head, and not a lot of moving stuff, then you can commonly raise the constant quality setting and not notice much of a difference. But I wanted to set it to 23 by default because it's a lot of times I end up just using that setting. So that's how you actually can control the encode quality. But we also have presets over here, and these presets are really about encode time. And the slower we do the encode, the more time that it takes to do the encode, the more optimally it can compress the file. So we want to find a balance, and I find that generally somewhere between fast and slow works for me, and I usually use something between 23 and 20 generally. But it all depends on what kind of video, how much motion's in the video and everything. So play around with those settings. And here's the cool thing about HandBrake is that we don't have to encode the entire video. We can test the settings on a small portion of it by clicking the preview button. So on whatever platform you're using, there should be a preview button. We can set our settings and click preview. And it's going to ask us where we want to start. It's going to break the video into components, 1 to 10 pieces, and select a starting point and say how long a period of time do you want to actually encode, so that we can view it and see what the quality looks like. For example, I'll go here. Let's play this back and see what this looks like. And it's also showing you the speed of the encode. I mean, it's only doing 10 seconds of it, but you can get an idea. I mean, that looks great. So what I would do now is I would actually start lowering the settings. And I mean, lowering the settings would be actually raising the number when it comes to constant quality. So I can turn that to 30, and then I can try a preview again, and we can see what that looks like. It's going to re-encode it and see if there's a major difference. I mean, ideally, we want to have that number be as high as possible. See, I'm probably satisfied with that, actually. I can tell. You guys won't be able to tell when I put this on YouTube because it's being re-encoded again. But for me, I can tell a subtle difference. But what I'm trying to show you guys right here is that there is no magic number that I can give you guys. It's like that's the perfect setting. I can put you guys in at a good starting point and then let you guys kind of test it and to see what works perfectly for your specific type of video. So that is how you use HandBrake. I want you guys to really write in the comments some of your recommendations, some of the things that work for different types of videos. I'm going to actually be filling the description with all kinds of reference material. I really want this to be kind of a place where we can debate about the best way to do encodes, because I'm always learning from the users that are watching my videos, and sometimes they give me some really good pointers on things that can drastically affect the quality of the videos that we're putting out here. So I'll see you guys in the next video.